Hi there and welcome back everyone, where today we're going to be talking about Band-Maid's performance at the 2022 Summer Sonic Festival, and this is because this is one that came up a lot in the Discord after the show. There's a lot of people talking about all kinds of things, about how great it was, also about sound quality issues, all kinds of stuff like that. It's been talked about a lot online, and I'm pretty sure most of you have seen the footage of it by now somehow or another, but I thought that there were so many topics that'd be worth going into. Now obviously I did a bit of a deep dive into the new track they played, the instrumental, which we're now starting to get pretty sure that is the song From Now On. I did say at the time I was a bit unsure whether that would actually be the song From Now On, because they said they were doing a music video, but then everyone showed me the tweets that I missed from the members saying that they were doing an instrumental music video. So there you go, it does seem that the opening song was From Now On. But anyway, I've talked a lot about that one. First of all though, before we get into all of the technical issues and the things that were maybe not so polished about the show, I did want to firstly say how just great it was to be seeing them live again. I mean, obviously I saw them at the Line Shibuya box performances back a couple of years ago before the COVID was really shutting everything down, and that was my first time seeing them, and I was just really blown away by it. Again, I did a whole video about that as well, but it was just really amazing to see them live, to see the pure energy that they had. And I was really intrigued watching the Summer Sonic performance, how you could kind of see when they came on stage, yes, it was a very somber start, you know, with the lights going black between the songs, everything going calm, and then each song coming in and then starting again with charging energy. But there was a feeling, you could see there was almost a sort of, okay, let's get this done kind of thing. They didn't quite have that same bursting out of the gate energy drawn over their body language, and that certainly was something that improved throughout the show. And then when they got to the end of Domination, just the smiles, the energy, everything had picked up, and you could really feel them loosening up throughout the show, and just how much they were happy by the end of it to know that they got through the show doing a really good job. I mean, this is a funny thing, you can have a band who are as good as these guys, as wonderful as they have been, but they're only, this is their third show back, you know, one quick performance at Download, then the one-man show, which of course was much smaller in Osaka, and then doing this. It's still something where, you know, I can understand there's a sort of a genuine palpable tension. Doesn't matter how good you are, you don't want to let down your fans. You want to do good by your fans, and you want to make a good impression, especially when we've got to remember they got a lot of new material that they've had in that time. I mean, we're obviously focusing on them having the new Unleashed material, but they're also performing songs like you've got Sense, Different, you've got these songs these are pretty new songs still as far as their live touring is concerned as well, aren't they? So yeah, I think that they knew that they had a lot to get right here, and so it was nice to see. I think there was a sense that they really cared about what they were doing, and it was nice to see at the end of the show just how much their body language freed up. But let's have a little look at some of the other details as well. So the set list is a really interesting one. Now, yeah, by the way, this is the smallest spoon that we have here. Thanks, Airbnb. People do make coffee here. It's not like I'm some weirdo, okay? People do make coffee here. Anyway, where was I going with this? Yeah, so the set list was really nice. Like, as I say, how they ended on Domination, a familiar note to get everything rounded up. But they were really going for the high energy songs here. You could tell they knew it was a festival, and they knew that people were there to rock out with, you know, real rock artists. Some people have mentioned how it was interesting how they started with an instrumental at all. For them to start with From Now On was an interesting choice. I kind of surmised in our Discord that I think the reason for that was, and I don't know 100%, but obviously we looked at the artists who were playing. There was quite an eclectic mix. It wasn't so much like Download where they were just followed by like heavy artists and a lot of screamo, but still they needed to cement what they were. And when you've got a lot of fans who are there to see a range of artists, including international artists, and they don't really maybe all know who you are, and you are Band-Maid, and you are coming on in Maid outfits, you maybe want to cement straight from the get-go, look, we are a serious rock artist. And this was a great way to do it. I think both it cemented that fact they came on and just immediately showed musicianship chops, musicianship skills, which is a good way to say, look, we're a serious band who play heavy music, but at the same time is also a nice thing to do for the fans who are coming there because they actually want to see you, so it gives excitement for them and it sets the tone for people who maybe don't know who you are. I've often said how good the Maid thing is for giving them a slightly irreverent feel, having that whole Maid persona, but you also don't want it to be something that makes people think, oh, this is just going to be like some AKB48 rock tribute act. So yeah, I thought that was a good choice. I was really, for myself though, so excited. For anyone who's seen my Band-Maid top songs list, you know I was really excited when they did to have Afterlife right after Choose Me, like it was right after track 3 Choose Me, track 4 Afterlife. I was so happy. I was saying before how I'm not a big fan of these when you have the festival shows and you get your favourite artist play for such a short time. But you know what? If they'd just come on and they'd finished after Afterlife, I would have still gone home from that festival feeling like, yes, my life is better now. The fact they played even more songs, that was all great. So it was a really good set list that you could tell that not just starting off with a heavy rock song, but moving on and doing a lot of generally high-paced songs, including things like Choose Me that are quite catchy. You could really tell that they were trying to win people over, but also maintain that high rock energy at the same time. They didn't really back off and go for anything ballady. They really tried to cement who they were as a rock artist, which was great. Yeah, see, I'm not a big fan of... when it comes to festivals in general, I was talking about that short playtime. This is one of the reasons why I don't really go to festivals as much. I'm a big person for going to the actual artist gig. I know you've probably all heard this a million times before, but I don't like that thing where you go to see your favourite artist. You probably go to a whole festival and you're just there to see like maybe 2 or 3 artists and the rest you just start saying, oh, maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that band. And your favourite artist comes on for a short time and you know you'd see them for much longer if you were at their solo concert. So you see them for a short time, then they're gone, then you're stuck in a crowd with maybe it's muddy on the floor. I'm sounding like an old man now. But then maybe your 2 favourite artists, the 2 artists you want to see are playing at the same time, or maybe they're playing at stages that are a long way apart with only 5 minutes between. You've got to rush through and so you don't get a good view for the second artist. Festivals, they sound like such a great idea and there's so much fun when you're younger and you don't know all the artists, but as you get older you start to think, man, I just want to get the names and the concert tour dates of all of the artists I like here and I'm just going to see them one at a time after work for like the next month or so. So yeah, I would never say a festival is an ideal place to see an artist, and yet at the same time, yeah, this would have been a good set list. I'd have enjoyed this. But also another reason it's not great to see festivals is the sound. So yeah, let's start talking about sound. Actually, before we start talking about sound, I was looking. This was a really eclectic list for this, like for the festival for Summer Sonic. I believe they had, dare I say it, and if you've never heard of her, keep it this way, Megan Thee Stallion was performed. Oh man, can you imagine going to see Band-Maid and accidentally seeing Megan Thee Stallion? Oh god, that really is playing Russian roulette. This is why you need to be organised. Okay, you can get off your face as much as you want on a festival, but you need to be organised, or that would be a fate. Now, a lot of people were saying that the sound at Summer Sonic is usually not very good. I must admit, looking back at the performance, and from what I could tell, most of what we were hearing on the recording was pretty much just live audio coming back through. It wasn't awful, actually. I've heard worse festivals. It's very difficult when you're doing that kind of mixing because you're obviously mixing it in a way that it's going to sound right on the mixing desk for the people in the audience. But then you've got the copy that you're hearing when you're at home. Now, this is not one of those ones where, I believe this was all live broadcast. So this is not one of those ones where they would have had a separate mix of the recording for people who are watching it back. We were basically hearing the mix that you hear there. And as I pointed out when I saw the Line Box show, there were some things about the mix there that felt a little bit off. And, you know, that's kind of understandable when you're looking at a recorded show because there are certain sounds that really move. You know, the bass goes a long way in a live room, whereas the treble doesn't so much. So usually what you do is you turn up the more trebly sounds to allow them to travel and, you know, be better spread between the people at the back who are only really going to be hearing bass and the people at the front who are going to be hearing, you know, a lot of the guitars and everything all together. So I kind of understand that these mixes are not always going to be great when you're listening at home, as much as there are techniques for them to work around that. But still, I must say that when I was listening to it, I didn't feel that off, that I couldn't enjoy it. I was fine enjoying it. None of the sounds were really particularly buried. I noticed that Miku was a little bit louder, and I actually kind of enjoyed that, because hearing Miku's vocals and her harmonies was nice. It kind of reminded me that we don't always get to hear the harmonies as clearly with Band-Maid as perhaps we should, because obviously Miku's come a long way. We always think of her as the junior, the understudy, because of how good everyone else in the band is, and already was when they started. But she's been playing and doing this for over a decade. You know, she's got the talents that she needs, and I think she's more than at the stage where we can really just enjoy hearing her doing the harmonies. And some of them were great, except for, as was pointed out, there were some issues with the vocals being out of tune, and a lot of people wondered whether this was to do with the sound. Now, a big thing to remember when you have got the sound, other than just mixing it for people to hear at home, is also the fact that this is a festival. You've got loads of different artists playing. Yes, everyone is going to do a sound check as best as they can, but you've got lots of different artists with different sounds, especially when it's so eclectic that you've got artists like, I'm not going to say her name again, all kinds of things, from more poppy things, artists who are using like totally backing tracks, totally different band shapes. It's going to be difficult for you to just have everyone sounding perfect and get everyone perfect monitoring, but you should be able to at least keep a certain quality. Now, so let's just talk about the vocals and potential problems with monitoring. I think there's a few contributing factors that perhaps came into why there were some flat notes, some sharp notes in the performance, especially from Psyche's side. Now, it must be said, first of all, that when it comes to singing in an environment like that, you really do need to have good monitoring. That being hearing the sound of your voice back and hearing the other instruments. To give you an example, when you're in the studio, this is what I do, and a lot of other artists do this as well. You go into the studio and you're singing with your headphones on. Very often you've got one clasped over your ear and one you move back. The idea being is that you think, oh, well, I just need to hear the music and sing. But just hearing your voice kind of through your body, although you can feel the vibrations through your body, it's not really enough to be reliably in tune. Okay, maybe if you're like the greatest singer ever, but even then, I think it's much better to actually hear your voice. Most people need to hear the sound of their voice and hear the music equally. Oh, wow. One moment. Hello? All right, back to what I was saying. So, I jumped out of my skin then, that was loud. So you need to be able to hear your voice. Hello? All right, let's try that again. So, yes. Oh, wait, I've got the headphones in the wrong ears. Why am I even using headphones? I'm not listening, I'm just talking. Anyway. So, it makes me look professional. So as I was saying, what you'd have is you want to hear your own voice, basically. So you can hear both the sound you're making and what you're keeping it in tune with. So when we're looking at the monitoring here, it is very important how loud the sounds coming back to the artist are. Now, as I said before, Miku's voice was a little bit louder in the mix here. You could hear that definitely she was getting a higher volume than normally she would do on, say, the recordings. And I noticed that Miku's harmonies were very much on point. She was totally in tune for most of this. Well, certainly as much as you'd expect from a backing vocalist, she was doing a great job. Definitely on Choose Me as well, her harmonies sounded absolutely brilliant, and that was one of the songs where she was loudest. So I can't help but feel that maybe there was a certain degree of that. The funny thing is, actually, a lot of the time when you're singing harmonies, because you might think, well, surely it would be hard for Miku if Psyche was struggling. But a lot of the time when you're singing harmonies, you're not actually listening to the other vocalist. Usually you're kind of more just singing your vocal line whilst listening to the music. Same way that if you just gave Miku a guitar and told her just play the guitar and sing your harmony line without hearing the lead vocal at all, she would be able to, because that's usually the way you think when you're singing a harmony. You're just thinking of singing your line, and then just the resulting awesomeness that comes from hearing the two voices together just sort of happens. So, part of good writing, hey? So as a result, I don't think this would have affected Miku if her voice was turned up loud enough. So I can't help but feel that maybe Psyche was not getting enough of her voice in the mix. And although she was clear, she wasn't as loud and prominent as perhaps she would be in another circumstance. Another thing that I do think came into this, though, and it must be said, is that there is this certain element that we all know what a great singer Psyche is. But as I mentioned about the whole band, it is really hard to just hit the ground running. Yes, this is their third show back, but it's a big show. And I noticed that, as I said, they got much more confident as the show went on. And if you listen to her voice in Domination at the end, which admittedly is not their hardest song to sing, but her voice just sounds more on point. A lot of the notes where she was most off were the short notes, notes like the very last note of Choose Me. She goes really kind of off. And there were some notes right at the beginning of phrases. It was the ones where she was really blasting in the effort. And I think a degree of that is certainly maybe a little bit of practice, maybe a little bit of just feeling the tension, the pressure of wanting to get it right. I mean, it's so easy to look at these artists, know how great they are, and just think they're bulletproof. Being the best at what you do doesn't overcome the fact that you might mean that you care more about what you do. It might mean that you carry more tension. Being really good can itself be a form of pressure. So I think there is also a degree of that. I think there's also a degree of her just really wanting to do well, because I did feel that her vocal got better as it went on. So a mixture of that, a mixture of having issues with the sound and the monitoring for her voice, and a mixture of really sort of wanting to do well, and a degree of maybe over singing. I remember the first time I ever did a concert that was recorded and I watched it back, I was horrified, because I felt like I was doing really good. I was singing, it was on stage, it was a show where there was quite a few of us performing, and I was doing the lead vocal for most of the songs, and I remember thinking, just getting into it and thinking, yeah, I'm doing a really good job here, I'm just feeling good about it. But there wasn't really any proper monitoring for that show. It was a really cheap show. And then when I saw the recording back, I couldn't believe it. It was so monotone. I was like, wow, I'm just not going up and down enough for the notes. And then there were some shows where years later where I was much more into it, and I listened back to it, I was like, wow, I'm throwing my voice way too high on the high notes. And it's very hard to monitor how well I shouldn't use that word. It's very hard to judge how well you're doing when you're on stage. It is quite difficult. It's not like the drums where when you hit the drum, you know you've hit the drum. And you know how hard you've hit it kind of from the rebound. When you're playing the guitar, basically, you kind of, because most guitarists play by feel, you kind of know if you're hitting the right notes. When you're singing, it is very difficult. It's not an instrument which just has that same, you can't just judge that you got the right note. Monitoring is your best chance of doing that, and really the only way of knowing is when you listen back to it properly in retrospect. So yeah, that's another point to throw in. Ultimately, though, if we really consider all of the factors, we consider, I've said it all before, but they're them doing this show, they're still sort of coming back after this hiatus that so many people have been through, the amount of new material that they were covering in this show, the pressures of it, the less than favourable sound mixing that you're going to have from a festival arrangement, and the less time you're going to get to do sound check, if at all in some cases. I can really understand that this is a hard show to do, and if anything, I actually come out of this more impressed at how well they did. I think they did a fantastic job. When you can put all those factors together, a pretty unprecedented situation, they've done really amazingly well here. They didn't bite off more than they could chew. They actually gave themselves a hard task, gave themselves a lot of new songs, gave themselves a really fast, pounding set list to do, and they delivered it fantastically with a lot of panache. They ended it with a brilliant energy. I think they left a wonderful reputation. I didn't see really much else of what happened at Summer Sonic, but I would be surprised if any artist managed to give themselves that kind of mountain to climb and really achieved it with that quality. So I have a lot of respect for this show. I actually really enjoyed it. One of the ones that really stood out to me is Unleash as well. This is a new song. This is a brand new song. And I actually think their live performance of this, being towards the end of a set list, this was at the point where everything was starting to click more. Psyche was getting certainly much more settled into it. The performance of Unleash, I genuinely felt improved my overall enjoyment of the song. I've been listening to the recorded version and watching the video and just loving that. But just seeing it like this made me enjoy it even more. Hearing all the performances, hearing all the details, and just hearing how they performed it live, I loved it. I would say my highlights of this show were, got to use grammar correctly, the joy that they had at the end with Domination. Unleashed really just came across fantastically. I really loved that. I felt that they also delivered it with a degree of just there was that panache, there was that energy, there was that little bit of swag and that little bit of attitude to it, which is another reason why I'm glad that it was so late in the set list. And to be honest, just as I say, seeing Choose Me and Afterlife right next to each other, even if they were a little bit earlier in the set list where there was a little bit more, they were still loosening up, I just felt there was a lot of highlights to this. It was a really good little set list, and I think they did themselves proud. So as much as there were imperfections, I can't help but come away from this happy. I can't help come away from this happy even with my big spoon, trying not to stab myself in the eye. That's the real reason I wear glasses. It's nothing to do with vision. Just don't want to get stabbed in the eye by a spoon. So anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts. Last time I actually performed a show live myself, which had monitoring and everything, was like maybe a good sort of 5 or so years ago. But I've done a lot of stuff in the studio as well, so I really can kind of feel a sympathy for them. Working with artists in the studio, you really see, especially how young artists deal with this, but also how older artists still have to work around a lot of these same issues when it comes to getting everything technically just perfect so that you can give the best performance. And that's in a studio, so let alone live. I really enjoyed this though. Would love to know what you think in the comments. Let me know. This was just a little brief analysis. If you guys want me to do more videos like this where I just sit down and waffle about things that maybe are of interest and give a little bit of my marginal experience, worked with music my entire adult life, let me know. And until I hopefully see you very soon, for now, ciao ciao.